Welcome boys and girls, Costin here with a discussion about one of the very broken aspects of Total War Warhammer 3. Something that if you're willing to utilize it, even though it is certainly a cheese, but something that could absolutely make your campaigns that much easier, trivial, but also give you a significant amount of variety, unit variety, hero capacity in a campaign. This is especially important because getting access to a variety of heroes in a campaign, getting access to higher level settlements, is just pure power. It's more economy, it's better armies, better access to units, better access to heroes, anything that you could want. It's just increasing your campaign pace, and it means that you can even surpass the AI on any difficulty, including legendary, in terms of the campaign pacing. Take, for instance, into consideration the Chaos Dwarves. The Chaos Dwarves inherently have a slow campaign pace. There are ways that you can abuse region trading, raising a settlement in order to get an advantage, but there is something that is, well, pretty much universal, in the sense that it's not just related to Chaos Dwarves, it's something that everyone can get, more or less. But it is going to be better for a race like the Chaos Dwarves because of their inherent slow pace by default. So it just would take a lot of time to get materials, get armaments, unless you're willing to abuse it. This is why it's important that all races have the same pacing in their campaigns, because everyone is dealing with the same campaign map. This is something that hurts Nurgle, hurts High Elves, hurts Chaos Dwarves. So let's take a look at the situation and what you can do about it. I'm not going to pretend that this is especially fun to engage in, but it is absolute power. So if you want to make your campaigns more dynamic and you don't want to use a campaign customization mod, this is something you can do. So let's take into consideration what you can achieve here. What we're looking for is the Master Mason trait, or basically any kind of trait that reduces construction cost. Reducing construction cost is very significant because one of the main ways you spend money in a campaign, beyond recruiting and maintaining units, and there's plenty of ways of reducing the cost of that, is spending on buildings. Higher level buildings for many races are very expensive. Growth buildings, military buildings, you name it, it all costs money. And it forces you in a campaign, especially early on, to make those kind of choices. Do I focus on the economy, but that affects my growth and unit variety? Do I focus on my growth and unit variety, but that costs my economy? Well, this is why construction cost traits are so important. There's also certain situations where you can get faster construction. One of the things that completely breaks the High Elves at the moment is they get free and instant construction through the same trait. It's called Administrator. Empire can get instant construction, but not free construction. Though there is a way for them to get free construction as well, or severely less expensive construction in their settlements. But with the Empire, you're looking at the Noble trait. And Karl Franz in particular gets a lot of growth, so can Gelt. Through his event, whereas Karl Franz, it's continuous throughout his campaign. What you're looking at is this trait. So when you recruit a Lord, this will work especially well for races that don't have supply lines, like Chaos Dwarves. And what you're doing here is, if a Lord is present in a region during building construction, they have a chance of gaining this trait. This reduces construction costs by 3% and increases income by 3%. This stacks. And it goes all the way up to minus 7% construction cost and plus 7% income. And here's what you can do with this. The trait, the way it works, if we look at the effect. So you need to be in a region, but it's a province-wide effect. So any building I'm constructing over here in this province is cheaper because I got a bunch of these with this trait by turn 9. Not maxed out, but every turn, or pretty much every turn, I've been looking to recruit one Lord and get this trait because lower construction. There's a couple of benefits that you do pick up from this. So if we look at a specific building over here, a barracks. A turn 1 barracks. But it doesn't have to be a barracks. Anything that you can construct in one turn is going to work in this. You construct a barracks. In this case, because of the various traits I have here, it's 518 to construct. If we look at the Hobgoblin mustering camp, tier 1, it sells for 450. So I'm still spending a bit of money right here. But soon enough, I will make that money back. And it's 750 to construct a building. But it's all kinds of buildings. It's buildings that require materials. It's buildings that require armaments. Keep in mind that the main bottlenecks in Kastorf campaigns are those armament and material buildings. Your provincial capitals, your armament construction. The moment you can construct armament buildings and material buildings for free is the moment the Castors become a powerhouse, not just from turn 30 or 40, as might be the case by default, but from turn 1, or rather turn 10. That is a significant power boost. And over here in this element, tooltips can be a bit problem. We can see that we can reduce the construction costs. We already have reduced the construction costs of these buildings by a fair amount. Now, what's really good about the Castdwarves is the fact that not only do they have the ability of getting this trait, for instance, but they can also then use laborers to buff it up. So this is further increasing, further reducing the cost of various things. I think it takes a turn for the trait to update the construction cost, but you start understanding, like, no, actually it can happen instantly. So already 1300. I think I might need to move these guys a bit. No, so it's still 1300 right there. And we can also see that the armament buildings have gone down. So if you're looking at an Nurgle campaign, supply lines are an issue in many cases, and that can hurt you, but I've played High Elf campaigns, I've played Empire campaigns where I got a bunch of different lords. It will hurt you, especially on legendary difficulty, because you do need a certain level of power in your individual armies to deal with things. Over here I want a regiment renown. But it will save you so much money in the long term and give you scalability. And here's the thing about these lords as well. Once you're finished with one province and constructing everything you want, you can then move them to the next province, and then the next province, and the next province, and just continuously get this done for free. And the moment you can start constructing everything in every province for free, even if you have to wait for time, is the moment you start stockpiling so much cash that in effect, while you might not be able to maintain unlimited armies, you might be able to give Orion a run for his money. And he literally has 3 armies in his campaigns. I do think this should be fixed. I do think that Creative Assembly needs to understand that people are going to seek these kind of options if they are available. Some people won't use them just because they don't want to play in a certain way. But I do believe the way races are balanced does need to be updated in quite a few ways by CA in order to account for these things. And also to remove this kind of abuse in the game in itself. That's really all I had to say, but there's more, actually. There's just one final point. Do you know how you crank this up to 11, actually? You don't just get the Master Mason build, the Constructor build, you don't just go for that. Forgrim. So you get Forgrim Grudgebearer, right? With Forgrim Grudgebearer, you have the following situation, the following dynamic to take into consideration. He has a defeat trait. He might not be the easiest Legendary Lord to defeat on Legendary difficulty, especially, but he is typically going to be in a war with Skarsnik, and you can use that to your advantage. Forgrim's defeat rate further reduces construction cost by minus 10%. Now, you can still achieve free construction with the Master Mason but you do need more lords. That means more supply lines, maybe more cost, maybe all that. Once you start thinking about Thorgrim, you think about Tretch, you think about Gorbad, you think about Scrag, even. I mean, think of Scrag's situation in terms of that. But ogres can get a lot of free construction, or very fast construction anyway, with their camps, and can have a lot of money for regular buildings. So actually, ogres are a great example of how a good racial design avoids these problems. Sure, there's some things you want to abuse very, very quickly in an ogre campaign, but because they're using their meat for their camps and their money for their units and minor settlements, ogres do actually avoid the pitfall. You don't need to do this in an ogre campaign to maintain your campaign pace. You just need to fight people. Whereas in other campaigns, it doesn't matter how many people you fight. You can go up against the entire world, and it won't be enough. And that's the difference. That's why the ogre rework, for instance, is so fantastic, and why when you look at Nurgle, when you look at Chaos Dwarves, it's more limited. Of course, you can make the argument that even for stronger races, it can be used to make them stronger. The best race for this is actually Dark Elves. And that's not a joke, because Dark Elves don't have different resources for different buildings. So they don't have to worry about building, getting materials, getting armaments, etc. You will eventually get to a point where you don't have to worry about that. They do have supply lines, but they do have normal building construction times, as well as instant construction. That is as crazy as you think. So, Dark Elves, which are already ridiculous, and they also can recruit everything for Black Arcs. So, yeah, it's a limiting factor with Black Arcs. But the limiting factor with Black Arcs is not the construction times, it's the surplus points. So regardless, this is ridiculous. It should be fixed. And instead of creative assembly maybe focusing on corruption, public order, maybe they should focus on these kind of things. I understand that you can't fix that cheese is not something you can fix, right? Or I don't think necessarily cheese is the problem. I think good racial design and just good game design, where people don't feel the need to use it, is the solution. That's where I stand. So rebalance rebalance Nurgle, rebalance Chaos Dwarves in terms of their early game situation construction, and that would actually would be a better situation than just like, oh, we'll just remove this without fixing anything else. No, people use this for very specific reasons. Costin signing out.